I'm going to start with Pete Hegseth. And some of this stuff is very difficult to talk about. Pete Hegseth, as you know, has been chosen by Donald Trump to be his Secretary of Defense. I told you about the adultery. I told you about the way he's treated women his whole life. I discussed that on this show right out of the gate. This stuff is very difficult to talk about. But I received details of what is in that police report where a woman in California claims that Pete Hegseth, in a police report, physically blocked her from leaving a hotel room, took her phone, and then sexted her, even though she remembered saying no a lot. And this police report was obtained by CNN. It's a 22-page report. It includes conflicting accounts of how intoxicated Hegseth and the woman were, and descriptions of video surveillance showing some of their movements that night. Now, the women who accused Hegseth of assault broke into tears when asked about the matter by CNN reporters last week. Now, unless she's some sort of phenomenal actress, which I do not believe she is, I believe something really terrible happened in that room that night. What does she say happened? Well, she told police that her memory after the argument, they had some sort of big verbal argument in that hotel room. She told officers that Hegseth took her phone from her hands. Then she said she tried to leave the room and he held her against her will, blocking the door with his body. She said she remembered saying no quite often. Next, she said she remembered Hegseth over her on a bed or couch, lying on top of her with his dog tags hovering over her face. She later went to the hospital and told the nurse that she could not remember whether or not a penetration occurred, but believed that she was sexually assaulted at that time. She told police that she remembered Hegseth, for lack of a better term, I'm trying not to be too graphic, finishing onto her stomach before throwing a towel at her and asking if she was okay. She told police she didn't even remember how she got back to her hotel room, but remembered walking into her room, getting into bed, and the alleged victim's husband said to police that he was worried when she didn't get back to the hotel room earlier that night and that she didn't return until about 4 o'clock in the morning. Pete Hegseth was asked about this earlier today in the House chambers after having a meeting with the incoming Vice President J.D. Vance, and here's what he had to say.
Did you assault woman in Monterey, California?
I have, as far as the media is concerned, I'll keep it very simple. The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you very much.
So the audio, not easy to hear. He said, I was fully investigated and I was cleared. Yeah, from a criminal standpoint, he is correct. But I'm going to ask all of you this question and think for a moment. And I want you to forget if you're a Republican or a Democrat, if that's possible. I know for some people that's very difficult these days. But I want you to forget your biases. Forget the fact that you might be a Trump supporter or you're not a Trump supporter. Please put that aside for a moment. And I want to ask all of you a very serious question. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you're a prominent member of the media or you have a prominent job as the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, whatever the case may be, you might have a very public job. And let's just hypothetically say a woman is claiming that you and or her. Let's just say for a moment it's not true. And let me be very clear. I think this alleged victim is telling the truth. But for hypothetical purposes, let's just say a woman's trying to ruin your life. She's trying to put your name out there, lying about you, saying that you perhaps assaulted her. There's a police report and all that. I would imagine your first reaction would be would be a lot of anger, right? Would your next reaction be to pay her off? Just think about that for a second. I can only speak for myself, and I'd say if someone made up a story like that about me, by the way, I don't think this story's made up, But hypothetically speaking, if somebody made up a story like that about me, I would immediately hire an attorney and I would immediately sue that person for defamation, because I think one of the worst things you can do besides is lying about it. But that's not what Pete Hegseth did. See, this happened years ago. There was no defamation lawsuit. There was no civil action against this woman. What did Pete Hegseth do? Well, according to Hegseth's own attorney, who acknowledged it, he paid her off. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. He paid her off. Says he's completely innocent. He didn't do anything wrong. But he paid her an undisclosed amount of money. And I would imagine that was probably a large sum of money, since he makes a lot of money. Is that the actions and the behavior of someone that is completely innocent? The police report is out there. For whatever reason, the police decided not to file charges. I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. When they try to tell you who they are, believe them. A man who cheated on his first wife with a coworker. A man, and I use that term loosely, and right now I don't care about whether he served this country or not, because we are talking about infidelity and we are talking about sexual assault. So the amount of time that somebody served this country has no bearing on this story. He cheated on his first wife with somebody he worked with. He cheated on his second wife with a Fox News executive and had a baby with her while still married to another woman. That ex-wife, eventually the ex-wife, filed a lawsuit against him. This is a really bad guy. Pete Hegseth is a bad guy. And I don't care whether he served this country or not in this conversation. I always respect anybody who serves, but what does it matter at this point when you have the history that this man has, the way he's treated women his entire life, and still saying that he doesn't think that women should serve on the battlefield? Let me tell you something. I believe this victim. I believe her. Is she just a phenomenal actress that'll just cry on command? Well, when the CNN reporters caught up with her a week ago and asked her, she's not allowed to talk about it. She signed a non-disclosure. She started crying. I'll tell you what I think happened. Everything that this woman said. Because I believe her. I believe this woman. I believe that Pete Hegseth held this woman in that hotel room against her will. I believe what she said. I believe there was an assault that took place. And I believe the reason why he paid her off was not because, well, I'm in fear that she's going to ruin my reputation, because an assault happened in that room and you didn't want it to go public. You didn't want her to go public, so you paid her off. The same reason why Donald Trump paid off his ex-wife who claimed that he raped her. The same reason why Donald Trump paid off all those discrimination lawsuits. They pay people off. They use their money and their power to pay people off so stories can go away. We could be talking about Harvey Weinstein, for example. We could be talking about Bill Cosby. Why is it? We could be talking about Matt Gaetz. Why is it that all these men in powerful positions just pay women so the story can kind of go away? Stormy Daniels being another perfect example of what I'm talking about, even though that wasn't a... It was just having unprotected sex with a star 2 weeks after Barron was born. But for all you right-wing evangelical Christians out there, this is what you got. You obviously don't care. This is who Pete Hegseth is. You want him to be the Secretary of Defense? Are you effing kidding me? This guy's despicable, and he's a disgrace.